Welcome. This is the non-dual lectionary for the first Sunday after Pentecost in year A, and we actually have the last selection from Matthew. And I don't mean last, we're going to do a lot more selections from Matthew. I mean, it's the end of the book of Matthew. Let's get right to it. It's quite short. It is Matthew chapter 28, which is the last chapter, verses 16 through 20, which are the last 5 verses. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but they doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. Just a few little things I want to glean out of this that I think we can take as nuggets. If we're taking a different perspective on this, what I've been typically calling from the outset, a non-dual perspective, and non-dual gets used in lots of different ways, and I'm going to continue to intentionally not define that carefully. um, the best teachers that I've been around, it's more of a sense and feel and intuition until it's crystal clear. um, but a few things here, right? Um, I am with you always to the end of age. Um, that's the sense of speaking to eternity there, right? And eternity not being so like Rupert Spira has this great little um what do you even call it? A great little explanation of like time and the now. And in one sense, the now is sandwiched between the past and the present, right? When we think of linear time, the now is just right now, right? Present comes or past and the future. Future comes later, past comes before. And so in that sense, now is a moment in linear time, right? On the other hand, it's impossible to get outside the now, right? I mean, literally impossible. I'm not going to explain that much. Just like if you say no, it isn't, then show me, right? Where have you been not now? And so in that sense, the now is eternal. It's the ever present, right? And so but the combination is very interesting, especially when we start using words like non-dual, right? In the sense that the now is sort of the gateway to both to time and the eternal, or the eternal in time, right? And so when here he says, I'm with you always to the end of the age. Yeah, one way of reading that is God/Jesus lasts forever, right? In time. But the other is, well, what does the end of the age mean, right? It's pointing to like something like the eternal. And I think that's very, that's something that you can take away and like just again sort of sit with and say, oh, what's this teacher here who's sending people forth is per the story, what's going on here, right? Um, and we can just take it straight to, what Jesus says, right? All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. So again, again from Rupert Spira, right? There's something about um, the here also in heaven and on earth, right? And heaven being like the ultimate, like what's over there, right? And earth being like right, what's here, right? Um, and in one sense, again, like temporally, right? Here is what's not over there. But in another sense, show me where you have not been here. And so the here is something like the combination of all time and space and this moment, or and this place, right? The gateway from one to the other and from the other to one. And so all authority in heaven and on earth is interesting, right? Of like bringing the two together all in one, right? Making disciples of all nations, of course, has been read as turning people into Christians, right? Um, and baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And that's, this is also Trinity Sunday, so we can talk about what the Trinity means. I'm actually going to leave that aside for now. Um, but what would it mean is an interesting question, right? If this wasn't just a person telling other people to start a religion, right? Um, so disciples of all nations. Well, disciples of what, right? If it's disciples of this particular prophet versus that particular prophet, well, then it's a very dualistic teaching, and Christianity is just another one of the dualistic spiritual traditions of the world, of which there are all. But what could that mean otherwise, right? To the extent Jesus, the Christ, embodies the manifest, non-dual recognition in the world and making disciples of all nations, baptized in, and we could even do a non-dual thing with the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? Like the manifest on ground and the manifest present, and the Holy Spirit being sort of the interplay between the two, right? And you can go to all sorts of Hindu and Buddhist teachings that would point the same way there, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, this is one where uh, I feel like I'm kind of opening some boxes, but not fully unpacking them. This is one of the things that we can do with all these little teachings, right? Well, this is sort of Jesus's last teaching in Matthew, right? The commissioning. I mean, that's what it's called, of the disciples, for what to go do. Um, but to the extent that we can gather anything from it that isn't in that, strictly traditional reading, like always, there's just some rich stuff here, right? And underneath it all, what can we take from this that like points us back to like the confrontation with what is, right? With what reality. And I think, um, the sense of there's something here about I will be with you always to the end of the age, right? That speaks to like something like faith along the path, right? And faith here really meaning that trust, right? Because for along the way when we have the sense that like maybe we've had glimpses or something like that, but the recognition hasn't landed in that, we haven't grokked it in our bones. That sense of like nevertheless, right? The non-dual recognition is always true, and in that sense is with us always. And so there's something beautiful there about just, always that we fall back on like, what is now. And so, here we are at the end of Matthew, although we'll talk about Matthew next week and the week after. Always sending us back to that fundamental thing.